Hello, Tar Heel Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the UNC Hoops Talk podcast. Crazy, busy week, especially considering the Tar Heels didn't play, but plenty to talk about. I got Gil here. We're going to start with kind of a wrap-up, put a little bow on the 2020-21 season for the Tar Heels, and we'll get into what everybody's been talking about all week in the roster talk and all that. So if you're watching this live on YouTube, submit a comment, question, kind of whatever your thoughts are, and join in the conversation here. But as we get started here, Gil, how's it going? How's your week been?
Yeah, man, it's been as crazy as it has been for Tar Heel Nation receiving the news. That's how crazy my week has felt for me. How about you?
Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind, trying to stay on top of everything, but it gives us plenty to talk about, that's for sure. So I'm trying to think, did we do we did a post game? Did we do a post game Wisconsin? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
That's how
No,
long
I
the
don't.
week has been. So, all right. So we can get into that game a little bit as we get on to wrap up this season. But the 2020-21 season for the Tar Heel wraps with a 18-11 overall record, 10-6 in the ACC. We were 10-1 at home, so not a bad season there, but ends in the first round, first time ever under Roy Williams, first time for North Carolina since the show, I forget his name, but Archibald goes off in 99 against the Tar Heels. First time we're out in the first round. We lose to Wisconsin big, 23 points. I think it was 85-62 or something. I don't know why I remember the score, but we go out big, and that kind of starts the offseason for the Tar Heels. But before we get into what happened since then, let's kind of focus on wrapping up the season as much as we can. Obviously, a crazy season with all the COVID. There's been, we've talked even plenty on this podcast here about the stuff the guys have had to go through, and everybody throughout college basketball. But when we look back at this season, what's going to be something you remember? How are you going to think about this season outside of the COVID stuff?
Yeah, it's hard to think about it outside of the COVID stuff. Checking Twitter all the time to see is the game going to be on? Did anyone test positive for COVID on our side? Did anyone test positive for COVID on their side? Who's paused? What games are happening? I mean, that's probably what I'm going to remember most. But if I try and focus just on the Tar Heels, probably what I will remember personally are the 2 wins over Duke and Caleb Love going off against Duke, and us beating them at Cameron. Caleb scores, I think, 25, plays a terrific game. And then just the way we dominated them at home, unlike really any Carolina Duke game in recent memory, just that we put that game to bed early and just kept them from ever getting into it. So those are things that stand out to me as what my takeaway will be from on the court stuff.
So you're Mr. Positive over there. You're going to remember this season a lot better than I am, because I look at our roster. I look at the big guys we had, the recruits we had coming in, and obviously those were 2 huge wins. Duke was not what they had been this year, or what they have been in past years. This year they missed the tournament. Their best player quits playing not halfway through the season, but in the middle of the season. Coach K cancels all of their non-conference games after a couple losses. But I look at our big guys and the potential we had there. Obviously young backcourt. We knew going back to last year that we were going to be young in the backcourt, and point guard was going to be a question for us. Shooting was going to be a question for us. But I still feel, even going throughout this season, as our young guys kind of progressed and showed flashes like in the Duke games and stuff, I just feel like we underperformed so much. And I think, as we look back on this year, again, we're going to see Dayron, who's, we'll get into later, but leaving for the pros. We got a 7-footer in Kessler coming off the bench, almost having a triple-double in a game. We got the preseason player of the year starting for us. I can't even believe I left him till 4th, but Baycott, improved over last year in the post for us. And with that, plus before we went live, you kind of mentioned Kerwin Walton shooting 42% from 3 on this team. So we had at least one shooter on this team. Like, we completely underperformed. So I'm not asking you to come down to my level and be negative here, but Did we underperform this year as a whole?
Yeah, okay. So the buzzword for this year, which I've almost got sick of hearing, was inconsistent. But it's the best way to sum up this team. Inconsistent. And I think underperformed is probably accurate given the talent on the team. But it's understandable at the same time, given the youth, the inexperience, and the special circumstances that COVID and the protocols mandated for that group, unable to really come together and gel and put it together as a team, as a unit on a consistent basis. So there were flashes, like you said, and that's what you're going to see from freshmen. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make it stick. We weren't able to make it consistent. And of course, with the news coming out, I think back to the Notre Dame game at home, where it seemed like a coming out party for Dayron. And then we can get into this a little bit, but then he's taken back out of the starting lineup and Garrison is inserted. And, that's just one facet. I think all of that chemistry issues were definitely something that was going on. And maybe that's leading to what some of the news we're seeing here for the off season up to this point. But those are some of the storylines for sure.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, it's kind of like, man, how many coming out parties didn't we have this year? You mentioned Dayron's there. We had
Walker Kessler against Florida State.
His big games, and Caleb against Duke.
I think
that RJ had one, but Kerwin, when he got kind of
Kerwin against Kentucky, I feel like was for him, and then for RJ, almost the ACC tournament semi against Virginia Tech. Although he had some good moments leading up to that, I feel like that was like the RJ game.
Yeah, and we did have five. I mean, obviously Puff had been injured a lot, but the 5 freshmen that played a lot all earned Freshman of the Week at some point in the ACC. So,
yeah, that was really cool.
It's crazy, but it kind of burns a little bit as well. So we'll try to stay a little more positive here with the next topic here. To me, it's kind of simple. I guess we'll see if you think is the same. But as far as Player of the Year for this team and Freshman of the Year, I think they were both announced as far as from the official Tar Heel social medias, and I'm assuming from the team then, or coaches, whoever got to vote on that. But who do you got as this team's most valuable player of the year, however you want to word it, and Freshman of the Year?
So I will go with Armando Bacot for Player of the Year for this team. He was the most consistent presence, and in the game against Wisconsin, although we couldn't really string together a run, the most promising thing was his performance there in the second half. The only issue was, where was that in the first half? Was it just an issue of not feeding him the ball, or was it an issue that he wasn't there? He hadn't fully engaged. And so I do wonder about that throughout the season. When we didn't perform, most of our losses coincided with off nights from him, whether he wasn't engaged or whether we weren't giving him the ball. I don't know the answer on 100% to that. I think it was easy when you have the 2 big system and you're not getting a lot of outside threat from the perimeter for defenses to sag and focus in on the interior there. So, but nonetheless, Armando Bacot, most consistent, our highest scoring average player on the season, 3rd team all ACC. He's my Player of the Year for this team. Freshman of the Year, I'm going to go with Kerwin. Had we seen more minutes out of Dayron, had we seen more performances out of Dayron, like the Notre Dame game, that would have been an easy one to go with him. And he was certainly fun to watch. And I'll never forget some of the plays that he made. Some of the putback dunks off 3-pointers were just remarkable. And some of the 3-and-1 plays where he's like getting hammered and falling over, I'll always remember those. And so he's a close honorable mention for me as a Freshman of the Year. But I'm going to go with Kerwin. Just so smooth. I think there's so much more that we'll see from him moving forward. But his game, his touch from the 3-point line, his ability to knock down shots really opened things up for this team and changed the scope of several games that went our way. So I'm going with Kerwin, going with 42% from 3-point range, all-time freshman best. So he's my Freshman Player of the Year for the Heels.
Yeah, and I had the same, and those were the ones picked by UNC basketball, or again the coaches or whoever got to vote on that from their side. So to me, there's only one caveat. The way I asked the question, if it's Player of the Year, I think Baycott's got it, and I think that's what they called it. If it's Most Valuable, I think there's a big argument for Kerwin to be made there, because if you take Kerwin off of this team, like, I mean, the inside guys can't do nearly as much as what they can. I think we saw that, early in the season, and so he may have been our most valuable player. And obviously, I picked him as the freshman of the year as well. So other than that, I don't know if there's much more we need or want to talk about this season, unless you got.
I don't really have much else from the Wisconsin game other than it was just, I don't know if it was a bad defensive effort on our part or just they were offensively locked in. Combination of both, perhaps.
Yeah, I think, and talking about Kerwin, I think they took advantage of his defensive, or lack thereof, his defensive ability, because they're Trice, their point guard, and he did get his points, but he can definitely go off for them. And then I forget his name, but their wing player too was kind of somebody that scared me a little bit more. But we had Leaky and Caleb on those guys, and at least contained them. And it was like, I think this Brad Davidson was averaging, I think it was 10 points coming to this game, and
which he fell back down to earth in the game against Baylor.
Yeah, he took his average back down against Baylor, but I don't even remember what he ended up against us. It was over 20. Was it just 21, or was it more like 29?
I don't remember specifically, but I mean, it just in the second half, as a fan, I could just watch it, without any attachment, because I already knew the outcome. So it was like, I wasn't mad. I wasn't throwing things, I wasn't yelling. It was just like, they're not missing.
Yeah. And I can't, I kind of harped on Kerwin's defense, but they were, I mean, like you said, they were knocking down stuff with people in their face too.
Yeah.
So we know that happens to North Carolina way too often. But
did I hear you mention Harold Arsenault and Weber State? Was that what the reference was?
There
earlier?
You go, Harold. Yeah, I can remember his first name, but the show, man.
Yep.
Not that we want to remember that. So
yeah, let's move on.
So let's transition there. So we lose to Wisconsin by 23. We played Friday, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a week ago.
And so and then obviously we keep watching all the crazy upsets. I didn't really podcast, or we didn't podcast about the tournament in general, maybe because the Tar Heels lost so badly, and for me too, we were staying up late every night watching all these upsets, and it was crazy. It was like, how do we even talk about all this stuff when our Tar Heels just got blown out by 23? But so we haven't talked about tournament, but we watch all these upsets, and we go through the weekend. And it's an incredible weekend for college basketball and the tournament, especially after missing a year. But then we wake up Monday morning, and we see, I believe it was an Instagram. It may have been on Twitter as well, but obviously it made it there really quickly if it wasn't as well. But Instagram post from Walker Kessler that he's transferring. And this kind of broke the gates open for Tar Heel Nation to go crazy about what the roster is going to look like and what the roster is going to be next year going forward. And all kinds of rumors and talk and all this. So we find out that Walker Kessler and his dad met with Roy on Sunday night, and whatever was said in that talk, it results in them telling him that Walker is going to transfer. And so I don't know, when you saw that post, kind of what were your thoughts? For me, I know, like, he was the last person I thought would leave. He seemed like he loved the university. He was fun to talk to in post-game interviews, but what kind of ran through your mind when you first saw that or heard that news?
Yeah, same. And I think probably same for most all of us that are diehard Tar Heel fans, that you just, you thought that this guy was just going to be a legend in Carolina blue. I remember seeing him in games that he didn't even play all that much earlier in the season, so engaged on the sideline, like so pumped up. And I was like, yes, this is our kind of guy. And yeah, so I mean, I was just really my heart sunk down into my stomach when I heard the news, because like you said, that's the last person I was thinking, and certainly someone that already in my mind I'm relying on for the next campaign. So definitely bummed. And then there's the rumors, of course, that there's perhaps more to come, and so you're just sitting there with like already this bummed out feeling, and then like, oh god, just rip the band-aid off. I'm gonna just know the rest right now, but we had to wait. But yeah, that was tough to hear about Walker for sure. And I agree. In the interviews I had heard of him, it seemed like he loved the university. Seemed like he was just the right fit. And then there was even the post of interviews that before the season with him, and quotes from him about, I'm not worried about playing time, I'm not worried about the NBA right now and how long it may take me to get there, kind of thing. And it doesn't seem to match up. But I don't I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting with Walker and his father and Roy.
Yeah, and so I guess even going back, you kind of mentioned it, but right after the Wisconsin game, there's tweets and messages going out that there's going to be transfers, and it sounds like the way it's worded, it sounds like it's going to be more than one. There's going to be transfers from this team, and yeah, like I said, Walker is the first one here. Obviously, there's a bunch of rumors going around about like you said, what was said in that meeting, why he is to transfer. There's all these speculation that Day'Ron is going to go to the NBA, which we'll hit on here in a minute as well. But if hearing the rumors that or maybe even going off of just kind of what your stipulation is, what's your best guess as to why he's leaving the Carolina program?
Everything that I seem to take in referenced how he wanted to be a stretch four type. He wanted to be like many of the NBA bigs are now, taking his game out to the perimeter more. And that's not really how Roy perhaps envisioned him. Although apparently they said that, he was shown tape of Luke May, and he was kind of sold like that's how we see you. So I don't know that there was this inconsistency there and what was originally promised or kind of referenced or talked about, but that seems to be the why, is that he wants, I guess, a more complete game, a more perimeter based game, even though he's a 7-footer and so dominant inside. And I don't know. I believe in the coaching staff's ability to develop bigs, and if the shot is there, if the touch is there, I just looked at the percentages. He went 1 for 4 from 3 on the season, so not a big sample size there. And the one he did make was banked in, so we didn't see too many signs of that touch and that shot necessarily in this season. Is it there? I think it potentially could be. Would he have been able to do that and hone that craft at Carolina? It's tough to say, but he decided that there was a better fit for him somewhere else.
Yeah, and there was other rumors, not even stuck to Walker, but there was other talk of how the underclassmen thought they were playing better in practice, and yet it didn't translate into playing time in the games. But for Walker, especially, I agree with you. I think it goes back to the style of play and referencing the Luke May tape selling him on North Carolina. I think that the problem there, and I don't know, I assume Roy kind of communicates this. He seems like a pretty good communicator. He kind of is pretty straight up and doesn't promise things and stuff like that. But he's seeing tape of a junior and senior Luke May do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Not his. Luke didn't come in as a freshman and just start throwing up threes and get all this playing time. And he kind of put in the due as well. And I think he could have gotten there. And again, whether maybe he just didn't feel like he had that time to do that, or if he wasn't going to get that chance later in his career or what, I don't know. But, the shots that we saw, even just jump shots from him, it didn't look like he either had the confidence or didn't have the stroke right now to kind of knock that down. I know we saw all the highlight tapes of him hitting threes in high school. And obviously that gets us fans kind of hyped for another Luke May or some kind of stretch four, especially as a 7-footer. But again, I think Roy is kind of more, he always has this saying is, if you're going to take a shot, have the wherewithal to make it, then, have the guts to make it, or, put it in. And, he didn't have the confidence now. Roy has played stretch fours before, fives, or however you want. He's let those guys shoot it, but I think you have to prove it to him before you can do that. So to me, that's the only thing I can think of is where that the disconnect is. And I don't want to get into too much of where Walker's going to go. He hasn't announced anything. All the rumors are pointing to Gonzaga, but I look at even this Gonzaga team. It's not like they're big. I guess Timmy shoots some threes, but it's not like they're playing, just kind of this spread it out and hack up, throw up threes all over the place either. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's it's hard for me to look at it completely unbiased as to like where could he go and really develop into a better situation, but he thinks there is one. So, but that's a good point that you raised about the freshmen feeling like they played better in practice and weren't getting the playing time. That loyalty piece of Roy to his seniors or his upperclassmen. There very well could be something to that in this, and I don't know how much you would want to venture down that hole, but that's definitely a factor, I think, perhaps. And like I mentioned earlier about Dayron, his performance against Notre Dame. We're going to see those inconsistencies with freshmen, but what would we have seen had we seen more of them?
Yep, and I know we through the ACC run too. We here with Blake kind of talked about our best big lineup is Dayron and Armando. So it would have been nice to see that. And again, we are so far away from the program as far as what's going on in practice, what's going on behind closed doors. It's all speculation for us. But there's definitely been a lot of talk about that loyalty, about giving it to the senior, and that's the way North Carolina basketball's been for decades. Not even years. It's been that way for decades. So it's hard to see Roy going away from that. It's hard. It's kind of like almost taking a part of us and just kind of breaking what your kind of core beliefs are. But at the same time, these young guys coming in are different. Not that we want to adjust all the way to their perspective either. But it's like who is saying they're playing better? Are the coaches saying, you're out doing the seniors? Do they just feel like they're outworking the seniors or the upperclassmen? Again, we're so far removed from that kind of stuff that I don't want to go too far down it, but I think it is a conversation to have, that there can be some adjustments within UNC basketball to do that.
Dayron averaged 19 minutes a game, and Garrison averaged 28.
Now
Armando 22.
I listened to the podcast that David Noel does with Kiera Luck, and they were kind of talking about this. Obviously, everybody's been talking about kind of the roster stuff, and they were talking about Dayron, who we'll get into next year, going pro, and the numbers that he was putting up. And David's like, that's great. He put up those numbers in those minutes, though. Just because he gets the extended minutes doesn't mean his production is going to just exponentially go on that same rate. I think we kind of saw that with Armando last year. He got all the minutes he could handle and then some. Like, we just didn't have anybody to put in for him when he was hurt or when he's in foul trouble or when he's gassed. And I think his game kind of struggled. He didn't go up as strong. He didn't have the legs, whatever it was. And I don't know what Armando's numbers were compared to last year, but I think we would all take this Armando getting less minutes, putting up these numbers and looking this good, as opposed to him getting more minutes but not producing the same or maybe marginally better. It would have been nice to kind of see. I think we did get a little glimpse of it in the ACC tournament when Garrison was out, but that's a pretty small sample size to say, oh, if Garrison wasn't playing, we beat Notre Dame by 45 or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily translate to all the other games as well. But again, it is a conversation worth talking about and kind of discussing what that would have looked like.
Yeah, so Dayron was that on Wednesday, announces that he's going pro, or was that Thursday?
They're running together. There's been so much talk this week. I believe it was Thursday, but it may have well been Wednesday as well. But yeah, so the next shoe to fall. So Monday, we get that, and everybody's going just crazy waiting for the next one. And it is either Wednesday or Thursday. We wait and we get the announcement of Sharp going pro. Obviously a little bit less surprising to everybody, I think, on this one. But what are your thoughts on Dayron announcing he's going to go pro?
Yeah, you messaged me about that, and my thoughts were bummer, but expected, or vice versa, expected, and I'm bummed. Would have loved to seen even more of him, but did not expect to see more of him in a Carolina uniform. Once a Tar Heel, always a Tar Heel. Gonna be excited to watch him develop in his pro career. Hope he lands on a good team in a good situation where he can develop. And I think a lot of people are putting some comparisons, not 100% on their game, but maybe just a little bit of parallels to their path with Tony Bradley. Never started, to the best of my knowledge, although national champion and a key contributor on that 2017 team. And it's taken him some years, and he's moved around the league a little bit, finally getting his footing. I think he actually just got traded, though, from the 76ers to Oklahoma City, which is kind of funny because they were just on the Carolina Insider video pod, highlighting Tony Bradley and he's teammate with Danny Green. Well, I'm like, now he's a teammate with Justin Jackson. So I think there's some parallels there a little bit with Day'Ron and Tony Bradley. And we're finally seeing Tony Bradley, hopefully, getting some more playing time, getting some better statistics. And hopefully, Day'Ron will find a similar path, or maybe even an expedited path to success in the NBA.
Yeah, so it is worth noting that with a rule change, Day'Ron can still come back, even though it sounds like he's hiring an agent. But I don't see that happening. I think he is, by his post and kind of everything, it seems like he's going to stay in the draft. I think the comparison with Tony Bradley, the way they offensive rebound, Tony Bradley and his minutes off the bench, I think per 40 minutes or whatever it was, led the nation in offensive rebounds. And I think Day'Ron was first as well, or somewhere up there close to it. But per 40 minutes, number one offensive rebounder. And that I think Tony Bradley's got the height over Day'Ron. Day'Ron's got the strength, the bulk over Tony Bradley,
and the motor.
Yeah, I think so too. Tony was such a quiet guy, and he kind of brought that onto the court as well. I don't know that Day'Ron's really outspoken, but when he's on the court, you notice him. I mean, he doesn't get lost on any plays. He's throwing his body around and going after stuff, and definitely have the motor. So, like I said, hopefully he finds kind of the right team, the right fit for him. I think that's what the NBA kind of is all about, is you have to find the right team, the right system, the right fit for you, find your groove in the NBA. So hopefully Tony Bradley's done that now, as he's got.
Maybe he can find his way to the Orlando Magic, because it seems like they traded away all their players. So I don't know who Cole Anthony can pass the ball to anymore.
Yeah, they definitely need some guys, and they like the young ones. They're a pretty young team as well. So Tony Bradley goes pro. Wouldn't expect him to withdraw his name, even though that is a possibility. And so that happens either Wednesday or Thursday, and we kind of go back to the waiting game, the speculation game, the rumors game. And then today we kind of get back-to-back announcements. So we'll start with Sterling Manley announcing that he's going to transfer. Again, it just happened, so we don't know, where he's going to go. We were kind of talking about this before going live, but kind of what does he have left to give in his knees? Will he go to a lower level? Can he succeed at the major level at a different team? We'll wait and see kind of what he decides. But I wasn't real surprised. How did you feel hearing the Sterling Manley news?
Yeah, not as shocked as the Walker Kessler, certainly, because I kind of thought that may happen. I think maybe you and I had mentioned it could happen. And it'll be interesting to see where he does go. If he does go to like a mid-major, maybe he finds his way back closer to home in the Ohio area or something. And I think all of us, or at least I am, curious to see what he does have left. And you were mentioning that if he does go to like a mid-major, that the production that he may have there, would it have equated to the same kind of production in the ACC? Likely not, but it'll be very interesting to see how his career plays out. And he's got 2 years left of eligibility because he was a redshirt junior and then the super senior season due to COVID. So wish him the best. Would have liked to have seen particularly the flashes that he showed in his freshman season when he was able to play in more games. Definitely just really, I thought he was a talent that was going to be exciting, an offensive talent for sure. And good to see him get on the court and have a few, things go right for him at the very end of the season. I think he had that end of the game dunk, an alley-oop from Playtech, and a block against Duke. So that was nice. And I think he even saw the court in the ACC tournament, or maybe against Wisconsin, if they're getting blown out, something like that. So wish him the best. Not too totally surprised. And we'll move on.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there was a lot of potential there for him to really contribute and be a factor. But I think over the last 2 years, he kind of gets forgotten. And then again, I don't know that the same potential's there after coming off the knee injuries that hold you out for 2 years, and to come back, play in the ACC and to really bang against guys. So yeah, hopefully he can find the right place for him. And unfortunately, kind of for us, it's almost good news, because it opens up a scholarship that we can kind of go and hopefully find somebody productive next year. And as we go through all these roster talks, and as there's more to come, maybe, or announcements of staying, going, whatever, I think it's also worth noting that this is such a different year, in that obviously the COVID stuff, and there was talk of Walker Kessler not getting the full experience on on campus, and maybe he would have stayed and loved it more, whatever. But also that they can play right away. Does Walker Kessler transfer if he's got to sit out a year, like a normal year? Nothing will know. But as I feel like people have kind of been hard on Walker Kessler, and not that I was happy he was leaving and stuff. But think back of all the years and players that we've seen struggle as a freshman, and people that even after they've graduated talk about how they thought about transferring, earlier in their career, that they probably would have been gone if this is the year they're playing in. If they struggle in a year where they can transfer and not sit out, people like Danny Green, who didn't play a lot as a freshman, Joel Berry in his senior speech talked about, he thought about transferring. His parents said, buckle up and get better then, and earn your playing time. But would he have been gone? I know I'm forgetting some. There was more that I'd kind of thought about. Even the guys in the national championship in 2005 that went through the 80-20 year. They easily could have been gone. I think I've heard Jawad say he kind of thought about, should I go somewhere else? And without that easy out that they have this year, we could be thinking of those guys differently as Tar Heels as well. So I that makes me kind of think we got to not be so hard on Walker. Wish him the best and support him. Be kind of sad that he left and disappointed and stuff, but North Carolina basketball is going to be fine. And so that kind of leads us into the last and to me a little bit of one of the more surprising ones. But tonight, right before kind of we went live here, Caleb Love announces that he's coming back, and he was one that a lot of people thought was kind of gone. And I unfortunately, again, as Tar Heel Nation, a lot of fans kind of almost were ready to see gone. They were like, if he's not, again, all the rumors we hear and all the stipulation people are, whatever's the word I'm looking for is,
speculation.
Thank you. Of what his body language is telling us, or what his dad is tweeting, and all this stuff. People are kind of ready for him to be out the door, but he announces he comes back, and like you kind of motioned there, I think it's good for Tar Heel basketball and good for us next year as we go on. So again, your reaction as we learn Caleb Love's back for his sophomore year or second freshman year, since they all get a redo.
All right, I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to touch on a little bit of what you said before about the new transfer rule. And then you combine that with the COVID year and how out of the ordinary it is, and Chapel Hill just being a place, that's just so gorgeous, and the atmosphere and the vibe of being a basketball player and getting the social life, all that not being there. And then you have this ability to go somewhere else because it didn't go the way that you wanted to necessarily on the court too. So there wasn't those things that normally bind a player. So I think that played a big factor. And to that end also, like you said, we have an additional scholarship available with the transfer of Manley out and Kessler out. So there's other players in the portal that we'll be able to bring in potentially to fill gaps in our roster. So a lot that we'll continue to talk about over the offseason. But then moving into the discussion about Caleb Love, for me, relief, and a big part of that is the point guard situation. We didn't expect Kobe White necessarily to be a one and done, but clearly he was talented and needed to move to the NBA to continue to show the amazing talents that he has. And then that leads us into Cole Anthony. Unfortunately, some injuries to that season to Cole specifically, missed a lot of time, and then just the roster in general. That season obviously is one to forget in terms of the product on the court. But the thing is, we've had so much turnover. Enter Caleb Love, never played point guard in high school. And then, he's trying to learn on the fly. And we know Roy's system, very tough for point guards to learn the system, particularly freshman point guards who are just taking it all in. And so you would have hated to see, in a lot of ways, Caleb move on to the next level. You can clearly see that he's got talent. You can clearly see that he's got potential. I mean, he hit some big shots. He also took a lot of shots, and his percentages weren't great. So I think that it's going to be great, whether or not he ends up playing the point next year or not, because RJ showed at the end of the season that he's going to need more playing time. And hopefully, of course, we're seeing him in a Tar Heel uniform. There's still a lot of unknown about this roster. But there's also, other players out there, perhaps in the transfer portal, that could be a fit too. I don't know. But for me, the ability to have the backcourt be consistent for a season together, that's going to be huge for this team, because that's where I think in March you're able to make a deep tournament run, and that's one of the reasons, a big reason why we couldn't make it out of the first round of the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, so we've hit on a lot here, a lot of guys, and unfortunately we didn't mention a lot of them. There's still more, like you said, RJ. There was rumor, again, this is going all the way back to like Monday, right after Walker Kessler announces he's transferring. There's a lot of talk of RJ is going to be out. I've since heard that he's for sure in, and he loves North Carolina. He's bought in and stuff. It sounds like he's going to be there for sure.
That's the energy I've always felt from him.
Well, I thought so from Walker Kessler too, but
that's true. That is true.
But yeah,
I see a lot of Joel Berry and RJ Davis. Just there's
definitely some dog there.
Yeah, like fighter. I'm gonna compete.
It's that short complex. We got a little extra in him. But the middle of the week, I was hearing that Anthony Harris was kind of 50-50 on whether he was going to be out. It sounds like he's going to stay, at least from what I've seen and heard. The same with Puff. I think there was, again, this is all rumors. I have nothing concrete to kind of back this up, but people are saying that Puff was about to, but then that didn't last very long. He was going to stay. And so Bacot is still kind of questionable. To me, I think Bacot probably tests the waters. And we've said this in normal years, since they allowed guys to kind of test the waters more than once, that it doesn't hurt to go get some feedback from NBA teams and kind of what do you need to work on and stuff. So I think it would be good for Bacot to go work out for some teams, or at least get some feedback from teams and come back maybe with some added motivation of adding a jumper, or whatever it needs to be that he needs to work on, his hands, his free throw shooting, whatever it is. But I think he does test the waters. But since he hasn't been on a draft boards, I assume he'll be back. The biggest question mark to me is Garrison Brooks. You mentioned the transfer portal. I think we do need to kind of get into that and get another big guy. A little bit of that depends on if Brooks does decide to come back. In his last press conference after the Wisconsin loss, somebody asked him, and he said he's given it a little bit of thought about coming back. And then he also kind of referenced possibly coming back but transferring to somewhere else. I don't know if you have thoughts on what he should do, what you'd like him to do, or what you think he will do.
Yeah, unfortunately, my cell phone isn't burning up with sources telling me things. You're filling me in a little bit on some stuff that I hadn't even heard, and I'm glad to hear about Puff and Anthony Harris. Yeah, with Garrison, I could see that going a number of ways. I think that he probably will be on a college basketball team next season. That's kind of where I think he might be, but I could be 100% wrong on that as well. So you're not getting a ton out of me on this. I don't know. It seemed like he hadn't thought a whole lot about it, basically, going into that press conference after the Wisconsin loss. which I'm fine with, and I think a lot of people throughout the season speculate on all these players and what their intentions are after the season. And I think that they may have some thoughts and some ideas. But for the most part, I think they focus on basketball and getting better every day. And then, they let that stuff work it out. And then they decide, once the season's over. The Kessler news came out really quick after the season, but there was that meeting that they had with Roy. And then you start to see, a few days later, some of these decisions being made. So I think Garrison, he's going to take his time. He's matured quite a bit, and he's now probably thinking about it quite a bit. Obviously, before he's like, yeah, I've just had a little thoughts. Now he's thinking about it quite a bit. I think he's weighing out all his options because, like you said, his name isn't on the draft boards either. So, does he want to go overseas and play? There's tons of Tar Heel connections overseas, and they speak highly of their experiences. Maybe he's ready for that, or does he want to continue to stay in school? And will that be at Carolina or somewhere else? I think he's probably weighing all that out. I would not be shocked to see him playing, perhaps for another school next year, or maybe back in a Tar Heel uniform. I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, and I haven't had any great feel or one way or the other or heard anything about what he's deciding. So he's definitely keeping it kind of close to his chest there on what's going to happen. So again, go ahead.
One of our best recruiters, sorry to cut you off there, is Armando Bacot. So, maybe Bacot tests the waters. He finds out what he finds out. And, he's like, gee, come back for another season. I'm coming back. Dayron and Kessler left, and, we built some chemistry over 2 seasons together. Let's do another. Let's run it back. I don't know.
Yeah. And, we've already mentioned the speculation of, do the young guys want to play with the old guys if the old guys are getting kind of the favoritism or the loyalty? Again, whether there's truth to that or not, does that affect our team chemistry and stuff next year? But I don't think Roy allows that to happen. I think he's pretty good about having good team chemistry, but that's kind of another conversation we didn't even hit on with all this COVID stuff. Is it's hard to build that chemistry when you can't go just hang out with people. The one time that we get a video of guys hanging out and celebrating a win, it gets us in trouble. So that's again a whole nother road we could go down to, which I don't think we need to right now. We do have some people jumping in here. Tar Heels and Kicks is a great podcast, good conversation, guys. We got I Am the Sheepdog saying that going into kind of his lineup for next year. I don't want to get too much into that. We'll wait and let things kind of settle down before we talk about lineups for next year. But would love Walton at the 1 and 2. He doesn't think Leakey should start anymore. Again, we'll talk about that stuff in another podcast. But need the scoring of Puff or Styles.
Incoming freshman Dontrez Styles.
Yeah, and then jump shot. I see Brooks coming back and Bacot maybe. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned if Bacot comes back, maybe recruiting Garrison, but if Bacot does decide to leave, obviously Brooks's Garrison's decision, if it were to come back, maybe is all the bigger and more important to next year's team too. So we'll kind of see about that. But he also says possible starting 5 with RJ Davis, solid backup point guard, and he says we'll be stacked in the backcourt. And yeah, I mean, I think with this news of Caleb Love coming back for his sophomore year, kind of solidifies our backcourt and our wings a little bit more with our incoming freshmen, with Leakey, with Puff and Kerwin there. It's almost like, again, depending who comes back in the post, kind of reverses our team a little bit, where we were so stacked in the post and young and a little frail in the backcourt. And now we're going to have a little more stability with the backcourt and possibly some question marks in the front court. So,
and also, where does that leave us on the wing? Still searching a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty good. Again, obviously, Leakey's got to develop some kind of shot and allow people to defend him on the offensive end.
Love to see a healthy Puff.
If Kerwin can shoot the way he did this year, and then we add Puff, and if we can get again even one of those freshmen to come in and give us solid minutes, it's about all we need there. But again, I don't want to get too much into starting lineups. We got a long ways to go before we need to talk about that stuff, and still decisions to be made. So we've gone pretty good here. I think we had some good talk. We've gotten through, I think, everybody. I did pull up the roster here. We can go through if excuse me. We didn't mention Andrew Platek. He's got a decision to make as well. He could possibly come back. we don't know what that's going to look like, what that conversation is, or anything like that. And I think that's it. Obviously, there's other guys can come back. KJ Smith could come back. Walker Miller could come back. And then the other non-scholarship guys, we're all underclassmen here, so those are kind of the guys that got minutes this year. We didn't talk about, but I think we've hit pretty much on everything. We'll kind of get back into the waiting game and see if there's other announcements. Kind of the big ones we're waiting on is Baycott, like we mentioned, and then Brooks, whether he comes back or transfers or decides to go pro somewhere. But we've gone a little bit longer than we usually do for podcasts, but I think it's all been good. Hopefully we put at least a little bit of a wrap on this season and started to look towards next season. And hopefully we get some more good basketball starting tomorrow. Kind of a different schedule for this season, or this tournament, I guess. We go Saturday through Tuesday now, and we're to a point, and usually at this point games still overlap. Right now we go to a point where no games will overlap, so hopefully there's no blowouts, so there's a lull in games we don't want to watch. Hopefully they're all close, good games, and we get some exciting finishes here.
Do you have one that you're most excited about for this weekend?
Oh, I don't know. I was going to look here real quick at the games. So tomorrow
we've got Florida State versus Michigan, right?
We do. That will be on Sunday.
And then Alabama versus.
I think watching Loyola Marymount. I don't know. I think they can get past Oregon State, but they're a heck of a team. I think if they can, they would match up with Houston, I believe, down in that region. So
if they both win, yeah,
right. And I mean, Syracuse Houston could be interesting if Syracuse is on. Houston isn't a great shooting team against that zone, so there's a little intrigue there. It'll be interesting, at least at the beginning of the game, to see if Oral Roberts can kind of continue to play with these guys and make a run. Unfortunately, that one that could get away. I think that one's either going to be a really tight one or Arkansas kind of runs away with it. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Baylor, I think we kind of expect to take care of Villanova there, but we didn't expect Villanova. I think we changed your pick, I think, on Villanova, telling you that their point guard was out. I don't know if you actually changed
exactly. I haven't even looked at my bracket because I just know it's blown.
So I mean, there's
but my Oregon, my other team that I'm going for, they're still in. Oregon's still in, and I'm not sure who they're matched up with.
Yeah, well, look here. At least for tomorrow, I think there's interest in all those games. Whether they all are interesting games as they go on will be kind of interesting to see. And then Sunday we got Gonzaga Creighton. I think we kind of expect Gonzaga to cruise there. Florida State Michigan, like you said, that one definitely could be. I think that's the upset people are going to picking Florida State over Michigan. So we'll kind of see if they can handle that. Alabama UCLA. I think most people expect Alabama to take care of that, but as many threes as they take, they're definitely vulnerable if they're not hitting. And then Oregon takes on USC, a Pac-12.
Oh yeah, Okay, that's right.
What happens when so many Pac-12 teams make the Sweet 16? You have to play each other again. So
interesting though. Okay, the ACC, not a great showing. We knew it was a down year, but the talk all season hyping up the Big Ten, and where are they? One team left.
Yep.
Meanwhile,
we got two.
We have. Meanwhile, we have two. We have Syracuse and Florida State in the Sweet 16, and then the Pac-10. What are they? Pac-10, Pac-12.
I think they're 12.
Yeah, 12.
I don't know how many teams they have, but I think it's called the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think they're undefeated, or they were
I
early
think somebody left. They in the first round, I think they were undefeated. I think somebody has dropped out. I don't remember.
Okay, they finally had a defeat, but I mean, yeah,
they got USC, Oregon State, and UCLA still playing. So
nobody saw that coming, I don't think.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to the games this weekend, and thanks for having me on, Dan.
Yeah, for sure. We'll look at maybe coming back next week, whether if we can get it all to work. Maybe talk about these games and definitely preview the Final Four. I think next weekend, the following weekend, and we're pretty much at kind of where we go to month-to-month podcasts instead of weekly podcasts. So kind of a sad part of the year, but we're still going to crown a champion here, and still plenty to talk about going forward with the Tar Heels. So thanks for joining, Gil, and until next time, go Heels.